Wow. Woo. Hi everyone and welcome back to Argentine Asado. Today I am going to be soaking a rack of ribs in wine for 24 hours. As you know, Argentina is very well known for its red wine and its white wine. And today we are going to be soaking a rack of ribs in Sauvignon Blanc for 24 hours. Let me show you how we do it, and most importantly, let's see what it tastes like, because I'm not that convinced that marinating meat is the best way to prepare your meat before you put it on the grill. But I've had a few comments here on the channel, and a few of my friends have asked me, hey, you should do a video marinating meat. So I chose pork and I've chose white wine, and I'll explain in a minute why. So I have my faithful companion to help me prepare the meat. Titi, so when it comes to pork, I like to cook pork more with like a zesty taste. So lemon, salt, black pepper. And generally when I cook beef, I prefer like the rosemary, like the woody, earthy tastes and flavors, not so much more the citric, zesty. That's why I chose a Sauvignon Blanc and a white wine for my pork over against a red, obviously, or a sweet wine. Now, that being said, I am going to show you guys the spices that I'm going to add in to the white wine as it rests for 24 hours. And it's really important that every 6 hours we turn the meat over so it gets the full, it absorbs all of the wine or as much as possible before we put it on the grill. So here we have my 2.5 kilo rack of ribs. And as you can see, I've just cleaned it up by, taking away some of the excessive fat on both sides. And I've cleaned it I haven't really overdone it. I've just left some of the fat on because I don't want it just to be meat, because then when it goes on the grill, it doesn't really kind of drips a lot. When you got too much fat, when you got not enough fat, it dries up a bit quicker. So I kind of took a little bit off here and there and then just kind of kept it pretty consistent all the way through. As you can see here, we've got a bit of the this section which is kind of left over from, I guess, from the pork belly. And you can see it under here, which is great. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mark these ribs individually with my knife, and then I'm going to sit it in my glass, in this glass container for 24 hours with the white wine and with the spices. So as you can see, I have marked every single rib. So once we take this out of the marinade and onto the grill, as this grill, it's going to expose those pieces of the rib. It's also going to help absorb more of the taste from the white wine and the spices. So you're probably asking by now, what spices are you going to put with pork and white wine? It's kind of a strange, interesting combination. And I know, because this is a test, we're going to see how it goes. So first of all, I have ginger, dehydrated ginger. Now, this is really cool because ginger is such a good it's so good for cooking. I mean, I love ginger in everything pretty much, but I love the fact you can get it dehydrated. So that's one of the flavors that I really want to get it. Then I've got some sweet chili, which is key. Then I've got some paprika, and as you know, I love my white pepper, and my white peppercorns I have here, and I've just put them in my grinder, and I'm going to grind them up to get those taste really strong taste out. And then also have some marine salt. Okay, now it is time to rub in the salt, the pepper, the paprika, the sweet chili, and dried ginger. Once I've done that, I'm going to put it in the dish here, and then I'm just going to pour the white wine on top of all of it. I don't really care if it takes some of the spices off, because once it comes out the white wine, I'm going to put salt and pepper on it again before it goes on the grill. Okay, so we've rubbed in the spices, we put it in the dish, and by the way, I'm going to put this in the fridge overnight, in the fridge overnight, 24 hours, and we'll go on the grill. But remember, when I take it out of the fridge tomorrow, we're not going to put it straight on the grill. We're going to let it rest. We're going to bring the temperature up. We don't want it to be super cold when it goes in the grill. We talk about that a lot here on the channel. Don't ever put cold meat on a hot grill. And then we're going to really pat it down so there isn't any excess liquid or excess moisture is going to cause problems on the grill. And that is when we're going to put our salt and pepper back on the meat, and then we're going to put it on the grill. So let's get the white wine in here, and let's see what happens to all the spices. They're probably going to start running off a little bit off the meat, but that's okay because they're going to stay in the liquid, which is going to be fine in the marinade, and then we're going to put it in the fridge. Okay, so Sauvignon Blanc
from La Azul, which, by the way, I went to Azul Winery last year. Amazing place. So I'm just going to put the white wine stock here on the side. I'm going to now come over this way and I'm going to add some more here. 2 bottles of wine later, the meat is basically submerged. The little section out here, and there's a little section out here, and it's because I didn't have a bigger container for the 2.5 kilos of ribs. So that's why there's a little bit here, but I'm going to turn it over every 6 hours. So that should be fine. And as you can see, some of the rub has stayed on, but some of it has just gone into the wine as well. And we didn't just have 1 bottle of wine, but we actually ended up using 2. See you tomorrow. It's gonna taste great. I have a ton of confidence in the wine. Let's see how well the meat absorbs those tastes and flavors, and I'll see you tomorrow. Stay cold.
Good morning. So we have taken out the pork that has been in the fridge now for 24 hours, marinating in Cabernet Sauvignon Blanc. So it's been marinating in Sauvignon Blanc for 24 hours. It's taken out of the fridge, and it's really interesting because it's got some like white parts, and that's because the proteins have started to denaturalize because of the pH in the wine. So yeah, I'm really excited about getting this on the grill and see what it tastes like. As you guys know, I'm not massive into marinating, so this is definitely a new thing, and I'm excited to see the results. So my first step is I'm going to get it out of this dish, and I'm going to put it into this drying rack. I'm just going to let it rest for at least an hour or 2 to get to room temperature before we put it on the grill. And then I'm going to damp it down to make sure there is no extra moisture on the surface of the ribs before it goes on the grill. So I have prepared the fire, and as you all know, I always say a good asado starts with a good fire. So really take time to build that fire, make sure it is absolutely perfect. Get some kindling on it, get some nice dry wood. As for today, I am using Piquixin, and I've done videos on this before. Piquixin is a very, very hard fruit wood. It gives off a tiny red fruit berry, and it is very similar to cherry wood or apple wood. And once it's dried for like 6 months, it is perfect for grilling because it gives off a very strong ember that will hold its heat for nearly 1 hour. So you create a good fire, you get a good set of embers, and then we're going to move them under the grill and slow roast this set of ribs with the rib side down. So we're going to come back in like 30 minutes once we've got a good amount of embers under this fire. And we're going to move them under the grill, get the grill very, very hot. And that is when we are going to put the ribs on the grill. Now, you're probably going to ask, how do I measure the heat of the grill? Well, in Argentina, we have a technique which is with our hands. So if we hold a hand over the grill and we can hold it there for about 8 to 10 seconds, that is a good range of heat that we're going to be using for grilling this set of ribs.
Now I am moving the embers from under the fire grill to under the grill. So the grill is heating up. I'm going to give it probably like 15-20 minutes to its peak temperature. And again, I'm going to hold my hand over here for about 8 to 10 seconds to kind of gauge that heat. And then I'm going to put the ribs on the rib side down for around 1 hour and 15 before we turn them over. The of ribs is rib side down. I've put on this drying rack and I've patted it down to remove any damp or moisture on the meat. I don't want to put the meat on the grill with it dripping. And I've also made sure that I've let it sit to room temperature. So this has now been sitting for around an hour and a half and it's pretty much at room temperature. You don't want to put cold meat on a hot grill. And as always, we have our faithful companion, Chisido. Man. So the meat's going to go on the grill and then we're going to leave it there for around an hour and 15 minutes. Keep that heat pretty consistent.
and then we're going to turn it over.
Just listen to that delightful noise. And do you know what I can smell? The flavor that's coming out of this, the aroma, is like mulled wine. It's like a combination of a fruity, earthy. It's very different, something I'm not used to, and I'm interested in seeing how this performs, because as I told you guys, I don't do a lot of marinating, and as you can see, the pH in the wine has kind of started to denaturalize the surface of the ribs.
Meat is on the grill. It's always a happy time. I'm going to leave this now for an hour and 15 minutes and come back and turn it over. Now, during this hour and 15 minutes, I'm going to make sure that heat is consistent. I'm not just walking away and forgetting about it. I want to make sure that heat is consistent. So maybe every 15 or 20 minutes, I will put a few new embers under the grill.
But we are 1 hour and 15 minutes into this slow grilling process. As you can see, the rack of ribs is right ready to turn over. So I'm going to slowly turn this over, and I'm going to move it this way, so this section here is on the same side, because this is kind of like the thicker end. And I'm going to make sure I keep that heat consistent now once we turn it over. We're going to leave it there on about 30 to 40 minutes, and then we're going to take it off and let it rest, and then we're going to slice it out. So we've turned over the rack of ribs. As you can see, there's this section across the back, which is obviously just got a little bit more burn, but that's normal. But just look at how the ribs have come through, because we've sliced open that membrane that covers the rib when we were preparing the meat. So after 45 minutes, I can tell this is done. I can see this juice sizzling out each of these ribs, and it is just looking fantastic. So I'm super excited to see the results of fully marinated, submersed, soaked wine with this pork, to see really how it performs. So let's take it off the grill and see what it tastes like, and I'll let you guys know exactly my opinion.
The rack of ribs is now my chopping board, and as a reminder, always let your meat rest before slicing it up. When it comes off the grill, the meat is always really tense because it's got all of those juices, the heat in the body of the meat and on obviously the ribs and the bone. You don't want to slice it up immediately. Juice is going to go everywhere and it's not going to be great. So always let it rest for at least 10 or 15 minutes if you can, and just hold back from slicing it up. I know it's tempting, but just wait and you will see definitely the benefit. So I actually let it rest for like 15 minutes, often even 20 if it's still pretty warm weather. But if it's colder, obviously you can let it rest for less, but let it rest and then slice it up and serve this to your guests with fresh lime or lemon juice, and that is going to be absolutely fantastic.
Okay, so here was gonna go for the first test. Let's go. And taste the white wine. Wow. Woo! And taste it. Super good. You can taste the pepper as well. Paprika. Recommendable. And it's still extremely moist, which is yeah. But